Welcome back, everybody, to the Triad of the Force podcast, a podcast from Puerto Rican friends coming together to do deep dives into Star Wars and other nerd-related media. This is the second episode of season 5.
Right.
Crazy. It's too much. It's like memory.
I wasn't even going to correct you. I was just like, yeah, it is season
fine.
2.
Yeah.
Season 2, episode 5.
Season 5, it's January. We're just starting to get, going. We know January's never, the most exciting month of the year because everybody's like coming off of the holidays. We had the Fiesta de San Sebastián this weekend. So, I mean, it's still technically Christmas in Puerto Rico till today because, longest Christmas of the year. So we haven't.
And the year, I guess, if you think about it.
Yeah, it's all good. So we don't have a lot of Star Wars stuff to talk about yet. We know there's some news that you're going to get into in a second, Goose, because I don't know anything because my social media game is non-existent. But you'll let me know. But anyway, there's still a lot of shows out there, and we love other nerd whimsies, not just Star Wars. So we want to talk about the show Echo from Marvel, and we'll get into why we liked it, why we didn't, like what we thought about it in general. If you don't know about it, there's gonna be spoilers. Obviously, the whole series is already on Disney Plus. So if you want to go check it out, it's only 5 episodes long, so it doesn't require a huge investment of your time. And I think all in all, it was a fun series to watch. So I think it's well worth your time if you're, want to check something different out from Marvel. But anyway, Goose. So what's the news for Star Wars?
That was such a good recap for Echo. That was great. I loved it. I was just like, maybe Disney. To Disney and Marvel hire you to do all the recaps because that was excellent. I loved it.
I'm glad you liked it.
Before all that, you said Fiesta de la Calle San Sebastián, the Saint Sebastian Street Festival. I don't know what the actual 1-to-1 English translation
is. Yeah,
that is, but parties in Old San Juan. I guess cap off the Christmas holidays. Although I still think we have Octavitas left.
La Octavitas left. Yeah, that's true.
But this is kind of like the last major celebration of Christmas in Puerto Rico. Did you go, or did you decide this is too much? Because it's too much. It's wild.
And this year got crazy. I think it's one of the biggest ones we've had in a couple years because it all got kind of slowed down. After Hurricane Maria and then COVID. And everything was kind of slow, but this year I think they got record numbers of people showing up. If you look, Google for Fiesta de San Sebastián or something, it's like there were massive amount of people. And so I wasn't up for that. Aside from the fact that that Josbando works in Old San Juan, so
you'd think that his I don't know if his boss listens to this podcast. If his boss listens, I apologize for what to say, but you'd think that they would just say, "Hey, work from home."
Work from home Thursday and Friday. But no, they had to work both days, and it's it's a pain to get into the city, when the fiestas are happening and then getting out.
That's one of those baffling things that I don't understand about employers especially 2023 and especially now in 2024 being so gung-ho about going to the office when we've already proven for 2 years that we don't have to be in the office to get work done. Yeah. So what's this obsession with forcing employees to go into an office, especially when 1, you don't need to, 2, you don't have to, and 3, it'll make everyone's lives better. Yeah. And it's just a convenience that, it'll keep your employees happy too. It's just hey, it's going to be inconvenient today. Just, it's fine. Work from home. The work's going to get done anyway.
Yeah. And especially when, for lawyers, so much stuff can be done digitally now. Unless you actually have to go to physical court, which isn't the office anyway, you can do it from home. You have access, all the filing systems are digital. There's really no need.
And correct me if I'm wrong, because now you're also starting to work in the field, so to speak. And I would suspect, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know for a fact, but I would suspect that there's not a lot of inter-office collaboration. Because I would assume you're basically kind of on your own researching your stuff to write your whatever it is that you guys write and stuff. So it's pretty much like a solo work.
Yeah, well, it also depends if you're in a bufeta, como se dice bufeta en inglés.
Firm.
Yeah, if it's an actual firm, there has to be collaboration because sometimes there's more than one person to each case, and there's all the paralegals, which do all the grunt work for the lawyers themselves. And so I guess it depends what kind of practice you have, and if you actually like going to the office, So I work in a place where it's they're not. It's not a firm, but they share office space, and
Mhm.
only I think like out of 6 lawyers, only 2 of them are like actually consistently at the office. A lot of the other ones have other stuff going on, and they use the conference room. If they have a meeting with some
Mhm.
clients that
Mhm.
they want to show like the fancy conference room to, but you don't necessarily need to be there all the time. So
Right. And
yeah.
I think, and I guess that's the
Mhm.
thing, at least for me, right? As a like an architect, like
Mhm.
collaboration is a big deal sometimes, but other times you're just like jiving on your own, vibing on your own, kind of doing your own thing. So
Yeah.
it's not something that you always have to kind of be
Yeah.
doing all the time. Sometimes you're just on
Yeah.
your own. So it kind of strengthens the argument of
Well,
like,
and then
you don't
especially
need
after
to do.
COVID, like you were saying, that everybody started getting used more to like working from home. Even a lot of the big firms have downsized their
Hmm.
offices and
Hmm.
stuff because
Hmm. Very
they're just
much.
not using them as much as they used to. So
And
I don't know.
I'm not, and I love, and frankly, like I am an in-person type of person. I'm more productive in the office, and I like to
Yeah.
like be out and be with people.
Yeah.
Just I live by myself, so kind of that's kind of my opportunity to do those things. So I
And not be
genuinely,
stuck at home. Yeah.
exactly, I kind of genuinely like to be in the office, and plus I'm more productive in the office than
Yeah.
I am
Yeah.
at home.
Yeah.
Other
Because if
people are
you're
not.
home, you're procrastinate. Yeah. But everybody works differently. And
Everyone works
especially
differently.
when it's like a complicated situation, you don't want to make it harder by forcing somebody to go to the office when it's like not necessarily that exact day. So yeah.
Especially when there's
Mhm.
like a massive
Yeah.
street festival that
Yeah. And it's
closes
hard to get it in and out of someone.
the
So
whole
yep.
city, and yeah, it's just like,
Yep.
hey,
Let it go.
let it go,
Yeah.
let it go.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. But
what do I know?
life is life.
Maybe one day I'll be a boss and I'll have that that mythical 180 that all the boomers always say that you'll have when you get older, and then I'll become some curmudgeon that just wants to just keep the status quo and like not give youngsters benefits that I didn't have, and since I didn't have them, they shouldn't have. It's like I hope I don't
Yeah,
get to
that
that.
type of attitude. Yeah, I
Yeah, I
know.
don't
I
want to
know what
get
you
to a
mean.
point where I perpetuate negativity just because it was perpetuated to me. But
Yeah.
that is beside the point. But speaking of negativity, let's talk about some Star Wars news.
Okay.
Because what would the Star Wars fandom be if there weren't a negative negative news, or
Yeah.
just news that people decide to just take negatively?
Yeah.
Uh, let's start on a positive note, I guess. And this is quasi Star Wars news. I mean, it is Star Wars news. But a friend of ours that has been taking a break from social media, podcasting, content creation, whatever you want to call it, is back. Brian Barry, our friend
Oh,
from
awesome.
Pink Milk, is back on Twitter to some capacity. Looks like they're gearing up to create more content. So we're very, very
Awesome.
happy to see
Hmm.
Brian be back and to be back in
We
these
love Brian.
social
Hmm.
spaces. We love Brian, so
Hmm.
definitely stay tuned for what he has in store. We don't know what it is yet.
Yeah.
He has a different handle now. It's Death and Robot, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But look at for Brian Barry on Twitter, and you will find him. He's definitely a very important voice in the fandom, and he created a very good community with Pink Milk,
Yeah.
and his absence was definitely felt. So we're happy to have him back. I'm very excited to see what the future holds.
Yes.
That being said, there's some other stuff in Star Wars that probably not the best type of news, and this one is one particular one that I wanted to check in with you about because it kind of concerns you to like in a way. There's some content creators that, as we have talked about ad nauseum in the past before, aren't too friendly with Disney Star Wars.
Right.
And one
Hmm.
of the reasons that they're not too friendly with Disney Star Wars is because the alleged wokeness, and I use that word cautiously because
Yeah.
what is woke except like a dog whistle to insert whatever thing you are against this week. And
Yeah.
one of the big things against the sequel trilogy specifically is that because it's Ray and now Ray's the Ray Skywalker, Ray marries Sue, all these things. It's that Star
Yeah.
Wars is trying to pander to women, and I don't know the specifics of this news. It's just
Okay.
because I honestly don't care. It's so dumb, but I feel like we still need to talk about it to an extent because we're a podcast. We're like I represent as I'm a dude, and I represent as a man, and you're a woman, I represent as female. So like
Hmm.
we're coming at it from like those perspectives and points of views, and obviously like our Puerto Rican point of view too. So like it touches
Yeah.
us because we are fans from different spectrums talking about Star
Yeah.
Wars and
Mhm.
from those points of view. So one of the things that then like these content creators, and it's one of the biggest Star Wars content creators out there. So if you can't figure out who it is, you're blessed. Basically saying, and I shit you not, that Star Wars isn't for women,
What?
and that they should stop. Star Wars should stop pandering to like getting more Star Wars female fans because Star Wars was never made for girls, and and it was like this whole viral video of him interviewing a woman and a woman saying this, and obviously it went viral because of course it did because that's how
A
the
woman
internet works.
agreeing that Star Wars isn't for women?
Correct, correct.
Wow.
And then in a kind of a beautiful fashion, like all the women, like female Star Wars content creators that obviously are Star Wars fans, started doing
Right.
res- started doing response videos
Response. Right.
of the audio from that interview, saying that oh, there are Star Wars female fans, and then overlay with images of them as kids growing up with Star Wars, and then now them
Right.
as content creators doing like all these things, which I thought was really it was a really beautiful counter,
Right.
not counter response, because counter response kind of like contradicts itself. A response to like these
Right.
videos, but in a way, it kind of made me sad because it's like really like we're in 2024,
3
and,
with
and
yeah,
we're still
2024. Yep.
like and men are still well some men
Yeah.
care if like Star Wars is for girls. It's like, what are we like, 13-year-old in a basement playing Dungeons and Dragons? No disrespect to the Dungeons and Dragons community, but it's like I don't understand like where all this is coming from. So I wanted your reaction from that news, and I didn't tell you about this all week because I kind of wanted
Yeah.
to
To see
get
my actual
right,
reaction,
right,
yeah,
get a
because I didn't know
distilled
this was
reaction.
happening at all. Oh my god. Oh my god. Who what an idiot. I mean, how many years back does he want to take us? Like it's like those idiots that say that Barbies aren't for boys and sci-fi is only for boys, and it's what they want us to have toys that are only like what kitchenettes. That's our toys. That's what we play with in 2024. Are you kidding me? I've been a fan of Star Wars since I was a kid, and Princess Leia was one of a really strong female character portrayed right from the beginning of Star Wars. Are you kidding me? That Star Wars isn't for girls? What? What? It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I've actually been really excited with all the awesome women characters that we've been getting in Star Wars. And I loved how we got the younger version of Leia and the Obi-Wan show. I can't
Mhm.
wait for my nieces to be old enough to get them into Star Wars. Yeah, Star Wars is for girls. Star Wars is for anybody who wants to be into Star Wars. That's the point. That's why Star Wars is so amazing because whoever wants to love it can love it. I mean, people need to shut up.
It's definitely
Not believe it.
right. I'm just like, what? Why
I
is this
cannot
even?
believe it that this conversation is happening in this day and age.
Well, and it's also funny because there's also like the cliche things among men about like the ideal woman, and the ideal woman also likes all your fandoms. And it's like, oh my god, a woman that likes all this stuff. So it's just like, so what?
True. You
Which
get both sides of that.
so
Yeah.
it's like whatever, however toxic that fantasy is, also too because it's like
Yeah.
makes women like a prize that has to have check boxes
Yeah.
to be won. It's also kind of a toxic thing, but you have, so it's like yeah, so which toxicity do you want? The one was like they share in the things that you like, or the ones where they're excluded from the things
Right.
that you want? So I don't really understand this whole doubling down the gatekeeping part of it, because like one thing is just talking about why this or that didn't resonate with you, and like a story you didn't like or didn't like. Sure,
Yeah.
that's normal, expected, and encouraged because like
That's
it
a legitimate argument. Like not everything's gonna resonate with you, but it could
right,
resonate with other people, you know?
right.
Not everything has to be perfectly crafted to your liking. I
Hmm.
mean,
And it
if you
makes
want
for more,
something
and it makes for good conversation to have. Like, oh,
of
you didn't like it, I didn't.
course. Yeah, yeah.
As long as
And
we come at
people
it from good faith, right?
right. And then you can change people's minds and other people can change your minds with their perspectives and be like, okay, well, it didn't resonate with you, but I respect it because I know now how much it means to you. So
Mhm.
this whole it's terrible for because of its own sake is just such a stupid perspective to have.
Mhm.
It's like it's so close minded. I feel sorry for kind of the people that are like that, honestly, like going through life. with that lens.
Hmm.
It's terrible. It's
Well,
absolutely terrible.
and especially because all of these stories, Star Wars included, they're a reflection of our humanity.
Right.
Because it's people creating it. People create based on their experiences. So necessarily, like we want and encourage like all these stories that talk about like the human condition to include
Right.
the condition of diversity. So it's always great to
Right.
see inclusion in all these stories and see like how far it has gone. I mean, I would argue
It
not far
still
enough
has
yet,
further to go. Yeah, it has
but
further to go, I
but be
would say.
like, hey, like
Yes.
it's reflecting us even more, and I think that's a great
Right.
thing because it makes for the fandom bigger and better because then we connect to each other even more profoundly. So to see
Yeah.
some people want to not have Star Wars grow or represent a multitude of people that
And the opposite, they
that
kind of want to
connect with
bring
it.
it even back. Like
Right,
they want
right,
to
right.
rewind the progress that has been made. I mean, are you no,
But
that's not
it
okay.
reflects their actual worldviews. It's just like, well,
Oh yeah,
if
I
we
know.
can't have women, which is like half the population, like
Yeah.
in Star Wars, then
Yeah.
it's just like the what? I don't know. It's so bizarre. It's a very
It's
bizarre statement.
it's just like saying voting is not for women.
Well,
I mean,
I would argue that they
that
would
they're
agree with
probably
that
into that.
statement.
Yeah. Hmm.
I
Hmm.
well, I don't think it's a. I in a way I think it's a bad example because I think that they would
They
agree
would.
with that
Yeah.
statement. So
Right. I
I
know.
don't want to put words in people's mouths, but based on the words that have
Uh,
been coming out of those
yep.
mouths, I'm just like, oh,
I wouldn't be surprised if that's exactly what they thought.
you're just a couple steps away from uh, from that. But
That
yeah, so Star Wars isn't for women. This is
yeah.
apparently where Jet Trial of the Force is jumping on that bandwagon. So now that you're fired, I guess. The
Right.
Star Wars,
Star Wars is not for me.
it's not for
Probably
you.
nothing. Probably
Not for you.
nothing nerd related either. Like video games
Exactly.
are not for me,
Hey, all those
and
books behind you, yeah, you have to
yeah,
burn them.
none of those are for me.
Start buying some
Um,
cooking books. That's
yeah, yeah,
apparently those are the ones. Drop out
right,
of college too, because you
right, right. I can't be a lawyer either.
can't be a lawyer.
Right, right.
Lawyers.
Mhm.
Didn't you watch all these Law and Order shows? It's all men. You can't stop immediately.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, so pathetic. But yeah,
Yeah, it
I
is.
thought we would start this review of a female-led show
Right.
about with some
With
Star Wars
yeah,
news about having female fans. And I mean, there's some stuff about the Ray movie, but let's not even go into that. We can talk about the Ray movie some other time. But
yeah.
yeah,
Let's talk about Echo.
it was an interesting week for female representation
Right.
in Star
Yeah.
Wars.
We
But
can't be nerds at all either.
no, 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 no,
Ever.
no, you
Yeah.
can't.
No, we can't.
Only
Can't.
nerds of the Barbie movie.
Right. Right. But then, yeah. Then, but then men probably would not be able to enjoy Barbie because
Well, they can
you know.
ironically remember
Oh, ironically. Okay.
and can
I get
ironically
you. I get you. Okay.
see because men can do the things, but when they do it, it's like no, why would I do it? Because when I do it,
We do it ironically. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So
Wow.
Echo, you already described it beautifully at the beginning
I'm glad.
of the show, so I don't need to describe it. So it was an interesting show because it was a show that I wasn't expecting when they announced it. So I was just like, again, I don't read comic books, so I
Yeah.
wasn't familiar with Echo's character.
Is
But
she like an actual comic book character?
yes,
Okay, because I was wondering about that when I saw it because some characters are created specifically for TV originally, like Harley Quinn was originally
yeah,
created
yeah.
for TV, and then she became an important character later on. So I wasn't sure about Echo. So it's cool to know that she is an actual comic book character. Yeah.
He's an actual comic book character that I
Hmm.
only really like found out about through the Hawkeye show,
Right.
because that's when she first appeared in the
Yeah.
MCU. So that's when I was just like, oh, then let me read up a little bit on the character. So I didn't really know much. So I was
Right.
surprised when they did the spinoff for her, which I was kind of cautiously
Why?
optimistic for
Yeah. Yeah. But at
because
the same time, like, why?
yeah, and
Mhm.
like there were like a lot of things towards the show that I was confused about. Let's put it that way,
Okay.
because
Okay.
when Hawkeye happened, spoiler alert for anybody that hasn't seen, excuse me, Hawkeye, Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin came
Yeah.
back, and we all love the Netflix Daredevil show,
Hmm.
and we all love. I mean, I don't want to
And
speak
he's
for you.
such a perfect Wilson Fisk. He
Okay,
was,
so we all love.
but
Okay,
yeah. Oh yeah, I love him. I love him. I thought he's great.
so
Yeah.
He was
Perfect
great
casting.
in Daredevil, so when he
Hmm.
can't comes back in Echo, I think a lot of the questions that the fans had, myself included, was like, wait, so
Wasn't
does
he
this
dead?
mean? So is this? Well, not just that,
Yeah.
but like it was like is this version of Wilson Fisk from Hawkeye the same one
Same one.
from the
Yeah.
Netflix Daredevil, or is this kind of like a MCU different timeline thing, and this
Repurposing
is
kind of
and
thing.
we
Yeah.
just brought him back because people love him, but this is a different Wilson Fisk,
Right.
and by extension now with the Echo show with Daredevil. So that was like a question that I had
For
lingered
speculation. Yeah. Hmm.
for this show, and then if it was gonna be the same Wilson Fisk, that means that the Netflix Daredevil show is canon, and if it's canon, the vibe of that show is completely different from the vibe of the MCU, and the vibe from Hawkeye was very different from Daredevil, obviously.
Yeah.
So then, what is the vibe for Echo?
Yeah, and then
And
the Daredevil that we got in
in
She-Hulk was
She-Hulk,
also, yeah,
completely, yeah, yeah.
completely different. So yeah, and we know that there's like Daredevil is coming back to Disney
Hmm.
Plus, right?
Yes.
So I think there's been a lot of like, how are they going to do that? Because Daredevil was super gritty and violent and all these awesome things. So yeah, so when they announced the Echo, I didn't even know really what it was
Hmm.
when it was announced, because I did like Hawkeye, and I thought Maya's character was super interesting, but it was also kind of a forgettable character in a way, because
Hmm.
she wasn't that important to the show, and so I was a little like, do I care about this show? Do I not care about this show? And I don't think it was promoted adequately
No,
either,
absolutely not.
which they always do when it's not a show that is led by a white man.
Yep. Hmm.
They usually just do not advertise correctly. I mean, the same thing happened with the film Shang-Chi, which I think it's one of the better Marvel films that have come out in recent years. And it was like just kind of ignored because, Chinese, we don't care.
Hmm.
So, I mean, the non white stuff that comes out from Marvel is just not given the same amount of attention as anything else. So,
Hmm.
me even going into it was like, do I even care? And then Posbanda was the one that's like, oh, I saw some trailers. It actually looks pretty fun. Let's just watch it. And we started watching it on Friday, and we thought it was fun. I mean, it's not a perfect show by any means,
No.
but it was enjoyable.
Yes.
Hmm.
I agree with all of that. Just
Hmm.
to piggyback on something you were saying, like
Hmm.
Disney slash Marvel have
Hmm.
confirmed that all the Netflix shows are canon. So,
All of them. Okay.
so they're all canon.
Okay.
Unfortunately, so is Iron Fist. Even though I keep perpetuating the toxicity against that show, even though I've never seen Iron Fist.
It's not good.
But I did watch Defenders, and I was not a fan of his character or that
No,
show for that
no,
matter. I did not
no,
like the. Okay, it's not that I
no.
didn't like Defenders. I just thought it was very disappointing because I did
Yeah.
like Jessica Jones a lot.
I did
Obviously,
like
I
Jessica
like
Lange and Luke Cage
Luke
and
Cage, and obviously Daredevil.
Daredevil.
Uh, so Defenders, not for me. But yeah, they
Yeah, no,
are
it
now
wasn't that good.
they're
Yeah.
now canon in the
Okay.
MCU, so that means that technically Echo is after the events of all the MCU Netflix shows, which fine.
Mhm.
But one of the interesting things I think that the show is doing or tries to do to varying degrees of success is bridge the gap between the I don't want to call Hawkeye campy, but the
Yeah.
kind of
What kind of
the fantastical MCU. Let's call it that. Let's call it that. The
Well, because Hawkeye
fantastical.
was also like Hawkeye was like a Christmas show,
Yeah,
really.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, so the tone was way different from the Netflix
Hmm.
Marvel
Hmm.
shows that
Hmm.
we had. So this one, yeah, I don't think it was nearly as gritty as the Netflix stuff, but it did, like you say, kind of bridge the gap, because the tone is a little darker than it was in Hawkeye and everything else. So it's kind of, slowly bringing us back maybe to what the Marvel ones were,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
maybe set like maybe we will get the same tone with the Disney version of the Netflix stuff. I don't know if they're really gonna do that, but
They kind of have to because otherwise
it won't
it's
be as
gonna
successful as it was.
it's
Yeah.
right it's gonna turn
Yeah.
off everybody because
Mhm.
everyone loves those shows
Mhm.
because of the tone that they had and how unique
Yeah.
and gritty
Mhm.
they were, and to kind of bring everything back, but then marvelize it, for lack of a
Yeah.
better term, it's gonna turn everyone off. So I think that this is a good opportunity for Disney slash Marvel to be like,
Yeah.
we can have different types of stories within the MCU. and we can
Right.
have like the Netflix style gritty TVMA
Yeah.
storytelling, and we can also have the Guardians of the Galaxy type of stuff,
Yeah.
and they can all coexist, but we don't have to limit. And now we're gonna have Deadpool 3, which is gonna be the first MCU R-rated film. So
Right. Hmm.
so hopefully, yeah, we can move past the monotony that
Of Marvel always has to be the same.
of
Yeah.
Marvel that it has been particularly pervasive in the Disney Plus streaming era, because
Yeah.
pre Disney Plus streaming, Marvel was had a lot of diversity, but I feel like all the, with some exceptions, of course, but a
Yeah.
lot of like the Marvel shows in Disney Plus have suffered from monotony, and
Yeah.
I feel like Echo is kind of a sign that things are changing. Although there are things about the show that I wasn't a big fan of, I think overall, I think it was real. I mean, enjoyable. I don't want to say
Yeah.
really good, but I thought it was good,
No, it was enjoyable. Yeah.
and a welcome surprise because it started shifting things for the MCU, and especially because it's Native American led,
Mhm.
and it's,
Female.
female
Sisterhood.
deaf of
Yeah.
hearing. It's very matriarchal. So I thought
Yep.
that did a lot of really cool things that we haven't really seen before,
Yeah.
and I think it's a really good companion piece to Killers of the Flower Moon in some weird way. I don't know if you haven't seen it. If you've seen the Martin Scorsese film,
Yeah, I haven't
uh,
seen it. Uh-huh.
don't bother. This
Yeah,
might
you
be
told me you didn't like it. Like
this might
everything
be
Native American
controversial.
about it was like in
Exactly.
a
I
way you
think
said. Yeah. Mhm.
exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. I
Mhm.
think that I'm saying it's not a companion piece thematically because they're wildly different. They're talking about
Right.
wildly different things. Actually, if you
Yeah.
think about it, they don't actually, because Wilson Fisk is a white man trying to put like his will over the will of a Native American woman, and that's kind
Yeah.
of exactly Clifford's Flower Moon. So never mind. Uh,
You corrected
well,
yourself.
I corrected myself on that. But while Killers of the Flower Moon show the Osage, I think the Osage Nation uh, from a white man's perspective, so we never get to see like Lily Gladstone's like great performance be
Ugh.
anchored within the Native American heritage of the Osage Nation and the
Mhm.
point of view of their suffering and where they're coming from and the beauty of their culture and like all these things that would have made that film a lot more
Yeah.
impactful, because then you get to feel the suffering of this culture that you don't get to see. It's like we're told about it
Yeah.
through Leo
The white
DiCaprio's
man's
point of
lens.
view, and then we don't get to see it, through the suffering of Lily Gladstone
Yeah.
and her community within the movie. And I think that's where Echo excels. I forgot. I think it's the Choctaw Nation
Yeah.
that she's part of in the movie. Let me correct myself because I don't want to
Yeah,
say
say
this
anything
say this
incorrectly.
incorrectly. Uh, have the Wikipedia pulled up.
Then we
Apologize. I should have had this
ready to
ready
go.
to go before I started talking out of my ass. Uh, let's see. Let's see. I hope I find this quicker so that I don't have to uh, edit this awkwardness back out. Choctaw. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Oof, there we go.
The
I said it
Choctaw
right.
Nation of
I, s-
Oklahoma.
I
Yeah.
said it right the first time. Woof, thank God.
That's nice. Good. Mhm.
Whew. Anyway, but yeah, but it does a really good job of doing the opposite of Tears of the Flower Moon, because obviously the main character is Maya, and
Mhm.
she's obviously Native American. Then we get to see not just her reconnect with her family in the reservation, but also then see the history and the
Right.
different points in history of the creation of the nation, which I thought was like a really awesome sequence, and then
Yeah, that sequence is super cool. Yeah.
see how the nation has evolved through like the history of Native America until the
Mhm.
present day, which I thought was beautiful. And obviously, like then the payoff at the end when you see like all the spoiler alert, all the
Yeah.
different parts of the of history and her heritage kind of come together in like this matriarchal reunion, right? Against when they fight against Wilson Fisk and his henchmen. So in that regard, I think the show was
Yeah.
excellent because
Yeah.
it's a part of the MCU that we don't really see, is like how we are respectful towards someone's culture and how that culture impacts who they are as a hero.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we see it in Shang-Chi, but here it's like really, really in the forefront in a very beautiful way. I mean, I still think that there's some aspects about it that didn't quite land for me, but the
Yeah.
fact that they did it, I think it's extremely commendable. And the fact that they did it while in consultation with the nation, the Choctaw
Right.
Nation,
Yeah.
was
That was
even
really
even
cool.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
So what
To
did you what
respect a
more?
culture that you don't really understand and to make it shine, I think it's always something very commendable to do. And I think the idea of like her quote unquote superpowers are like powers through heritage, I think is really cool. It's and because it's
That's
not
something I
just
didn't like actually, but
you
keep going.
didn't like that it was like
I'll tell you why
through
in a minute.
heritage.
I'll tell you
Well,
why in a minute. Yeah.
I didn't like the fact that she had superpowers at all, actually. I kind of wish
Okay. Yeah.
she wouldn't have any because she was
Same.
such a badass on her own. So when she first got like the glowy hands, I was like,
I was like,
why can't a woman just be
Iron Fist.
powerful? Yeah, by her own sake.
Yes.
Why
Yes.
do we
Yes.
have to
Agreed.
give her superpowers for her to be a hero when she's already a badass? But it kind of grew on me because of the power that it was, because it
Hmm.
was, through heritage, and because it's kind of like with each new generation you keep the knowledge of the generation that came before
Okay.
you, and
Hmm.
then you can
Hmm.
kind of towards the end it's not just the fact that she's empowered by what her generations learned.
Hmm.
So it
Hmm.
was kind
Hmm.
of very Avatar, except like this is within one line of a family instead of
Okay.
like, so it kind of grew on me as it came out, and I thought it was really cool when you see all the women like with her, and then she can kind of like transmit her knowledge to her cousin and her grandmother, and then through them make them warriors as well. So I don't know.
Hmm.
So there
Hmm.
was some of it that I really like. One of the problems was that I really do think, and I'm fine with short, but I think 5 episodes is too short.
Too short. Yeah.
So there's a lot of character development that gets
Hmm. Hmm.
ignored. So there's a lot of questions about, it is awesome when she finally like rekindles her relationship with her grandmother, but there's not that like emotional, you know,
Yep.
struggle enough. Like her relationship with her cousin, it never really gets discussed either. Like they never get to go back and forth truly on like how they've made each other feel through the
Hmm.
years.
Hmm.
So especially a show that's so family centered, there's a lot of that missing. And then
Hmm.
especially with her relationship with Wilson Fisk, who we know from the Daredevil series that the man is just like incredibly emotionally unstable.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
and then she was raised by this man from the
Hmm.
moment that her father died, and I do love the line when she calls him out, because I was thinking the exact same thing when he creates like that device so he can speak to her, and it's like, you if you really cared about me you would have gone through the effort of actually learning American Sign Language, which shows like this is the man that was her only connection to humanity, basically, because he did
Hmm.
completely isolate her and just raised her to be his daughter, and he is so emotionally unstable. But there's a lot that we don't get to see. I mean, the few flashbacks that we do get are really good, but I think that
Hmm.
could have been
Hmm.
explored more, so we could see, you know how she really grew up with this man, and how this man became kind of obsessed with her, because towards the end it's just like, oh, you're not going to love me on my terms, I'm just gonna kidnap your family and force you to love me. I mean, what a horrible way to think.
Yeah.
So that could have been explored way more, and especially because we don't we know she like healed some of his emotional baggage there at the end, so I think we're going to see some change in the Wilson Fisk that we are going to see in the future, but we don't really know like how much it's going to affect him as a character. I don't
Yeah, I definitely agree about the 5 episode thing, which I think
know.
it's a Disney Plus thing as a whole. Just stop
Mhm.
making short series.
Yeah.
It's because it doesn't feel like a series as much as a long movie at that point.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
And even then, it feels like an undercooked long movie, which is even worse to think
Yeah.
about. I think I think Mandalorian's 8 episodes, but it kind of works. But when you, it's still cutting it close. I feel
Yeah.
Andor, 12 episodes. I think was perfect.
Perfect.
It was good. I'm even fine with 10. I think 10 episodes is a good sweet spot. But I kind of missed the days when we had
Yeah.
like a season was long.
20 something episodes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean maybe that's maybe too long, but I definitely feel like 10 should be like a threshold, unless it's a mini series or something. Which to
Yeah.
be fair, this was, but it's still too short. Like
Five is really short.
there was a lot of stuff, like you said, that was missing that we needed to understand, like a lot of the family dynamics and interpersonal relationships. Because there was like, I remember, what was it, the second episode when she goes back to her home, and then the her cousin with the pickup truck. I'm just like, who the
Yeah.
hell is this? And they just
Yeah.
don't even like we don't even explain who he is, and I'm just like, wait, I don't, And then she goes to the roller rink and she talks to the dude. And I'm just like, who the hell are you? It's like
Yeah.
there were a lot of like relations that we eventually kind of pick up who they
Yeah.
are further, but it's sort of like
Yeah. For a while, every
here's
time they show
someone.
up, it's like, wait, which one was this? Like,
Exactly,
what
who
what
the hell
happened?
are you?
Yeah,
Uh,
because I mean, we don't really get to find out all that much about her in Hawkeye. So this is your opportunity to actually give real background to this character and stuff. And then it just kind of jumps right in, and you're kind of expected to know all of her family history. And
but to be fair, the first episode tries and for the most part succeeds. I think
yeah, and giving us this
re-
background. Yeah.
to recap a lot, and like I think they
Hmm.
did all of clever stuff of showing clips from the Hawkeye show so that we can get caught
Yeah.
up. And as good as it was, it still felt like an extended previously on, you know?
Right. Yeah, you're right.
Instead of a
Instead of
here's
being its
here's
own episode.
exactly
Yeah.
instead of like this
Here's
is the
episode
pilot
one.
episode.
Yeah.
So for better or worse, I think they
Yeah.
still did it like a really good job, and I think that fight with I remember the fight with Daredevil was leaked online a couple of days before the show premiere,
Oh.
and people were kind of shitting on it, for lack of a better term,
Oh. Okay.
being like, "Oh, this looks way too choreographed," and blah 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 blah. And I was like, "Well, but we're seeing it without the music. We're seeing it like a recording of
Yeah.
a recording. So I'll wait to see it when it actually comes out."
Right.
And I thought that's why it was actually awesome. I think that they did a really good job when even before Daredevil shows up to set up that fight as
Yeah.
this is like a Netflix Marvel fight from the
Yeah.
Daredevil shows. Did it hit as hard as some of the fights from Netflix? Probably not, but I think
Yeah.
it still captured the
Yeah.
energy from
Hmm.
those and the grittiness of it. And when Daredevil shows up, I thought that was a great fight,
I thought it
honestly.
was super cool. Yeah, I thought it was super cool. I thought the fight was super fun. I mean, like you said, Netflix had perfected that whole hallway scene without any edits and stuff. So
Mhm.
it's something else, and that's Daredevil, and they should save it if they're gonna do it again for Daredevil show. But I
Yeah,
thought the fight was still really cool. There's some really cool things that I liked about the show. I really liked it when we lost sound completely,
yeah,
so
yeah.
we felt more
How she
connected to
feels, yeah.
her and how she perceives the world. So I loved whenever they did that. I kind of wish they would have done it a little bit more. I thought it was really cool for them to actually use their language and not keep it English the whole way through, which
Mhm,
is
mhm,
something I always love. And then they just subtitle it. You don't need to explain it. I loved all the sign language as well, and how sometimes they're just lip using their lips while they sign, not necessarily saying it out loud.
mhm,
There was a lot of things about it that was really cool. It was too short, and there were a lot of things that they almost hit the mark, but not completely. So I think it
mhm.
had a lot of really good potential, but it fell short in some things. But all in all, I thought it was really fun. So
Yeah, I think for me, like there were just a couple of things that I don't want to say completely hit the mark, but they
mhm.
missed it enough that I'm just like
You're like,
this is like the things that didn't really work, and I want to say the first one that I want to say I'm going to actually leave for last
okay,
because it has to do with what you were talking about with the powers. But the first one, let's just get it out of the way. It looked kind of cheap. Like it looked like they filmed it in the volume, and the sets didn't look that amazing. It didn't feel like a high production.
yeah, and the woodpecker CGI was driving me insane the whole time.
So like I
Yeah,
get it. It's a
yeah,
smaller budget than a lot of the things that you've done before,
yeah,
but we've seen these types of shows look better. So
yeah,
let's just put that out of the way and move on.
yeah,
Second thing was the whole Wilson Fisk stuff. I feel ultimately that this really probably shouldn't have been about him,
Wilson
and that
Fisk. Yeah,
yeah, and he
about her
should
coming back home and reconnecting and kind of leave
yes,
the
like
Kingpin out of it. Yeah,
maybe he is the villain behind the things that are happening,
yeah, yeah.
and he shows up in flashbacks to set up like why she has all this baggage with him, but I don't think that having him be the primary antagonist in the show
Right.
worked. because it's kind of like it just ends unresolved. It's
Mhm.
she's trying to be the queen pin, but then that goes nowhere immediately because he
Yeah.
shows up and then he leaves immediately. I'm just like,
And
oh,
then she
so
like kind of feels him somehow, but then he just gets on a plane and decides he's gonna run for mayor, and I don't know. That was all very
yeah.
strange. Yeah.
So the whole Kingpin stuff, I was not.
Yeah.
As much as I love Vincent D'Onofrio, and I think he did an amazing job here, as he always does.
Yeah.
Let's be fair. I just didn't. And maybe
Yeah.
again, it's one of those symptoms of having the series be that
She'd
short.
be so short. Yeah. If you would have had more episodes, then you can explore her
Right.
reconnecting with her family separately from then bringing in the
Mm-hmm.
kingpin.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, then the story seems kind of fragmented. You're kind of going through the whole her reconnecting with her family, but then you don't really. I remember at one point thinking like, why is she trying to be queen pin? Like, why?
Right. Exactly.
I don't get it. Why? If she knows it was like this toxic thing, why does she want to keep perpetuating it? It was hard to see sometimes like what her motivation was, just because we didn't get a chance to explore really, the way she thought or how it affected her truly when she
Mm-hmm.
found out that she had been manipulated her entire life. So I don't know. Yeah,
I
I
think
wish it would have gone deeper. So
I think maybe what would have been more interesting was
yeah,
if in Hawkeye she doesn't find out. I mean, she does find out about like her dad being murdered by Kingpin.
yeah,
Fine, but maybe she doesn't believe Hawkeye yet. So that's
right.
the
And she's
that's
yeah,
the plot thread that's left dangling for Echo, and then Echo is like her
right,
trying to solve that mystery and confront Kingpin about it. And then like it
yeah,
actually has personal stakes because one, she has to
mhm,
go back to reconnect with her family to like
mhm,
find like, okay, I need to figure this out. And then it's just like,
yeah,
wait, okay, let's see. I trust this Hawkeye guy, but how could the person
yeah,
that raised me have done this? So I'm just gonna like start, and then it just becomes more of a
yeah,
thriller
yeah.
or like a detective thing where she's
Where she's
figuring
just
out
like
that
trying to figure
mystery.
out really what Kingpin was up to back in the day and how the events that
Right.
led to her father's death happened, and then we can turn a little bit more into like Jessica Jones,
Yeah.
but with
Exactly.
her and her
Exactly.
family, and yeah,
Exactly. Yep.
that
Yep.
would have been interesting. I think yes.
And then the end of the show is the confrontation with him, and it's just like, hey,
Yeah.
you killed my dad, blah blah blah, bam bam, and
Hmm.
then instead of killing him or shooting him in the eye in the end of Hawkeye, she does that in this show,
Yeah.
and then that's the call. And I feel like maybe that I'm not saying I'm not a writer, so
Writer. Yeah.
probably my idea's dumb, but in a way, like I feel like that justifies Kingpin's role in the show a little bit more than it did
Then what we got. Yeah.
right now. But yeah, so that's number two. And then number three is kind of like a big one.
The powers. Yeah.
It's the powers, and it's because, like, one of the things you said. One, not everyone needs to have magic powers. One.
Right.
Two, her character is served more by not having them. And
Yeah.
then three, it's the cliche of the magic Native American man. It's like
Yeah.
Native
Yeah.
Americans are magical because their connection to the land and they have
Yeah.
superpowers, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
it's a trope. Which, as far as trope
Right.
goes, I mean that's I guess one of the least harmful because at least you're making them,
Yeah. Healers
superpower
and
healers.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's still a cliche that's perpetuated, right? It's still always like
Hmm.
they can't just be good
Hmm.
because they're just good. They
Yeah.
have to know we have to have some
Or just
magical
powerful in and of
connection.
themselves. Yeah.
It's a magical connection because we're Native Americans, and I'm just like, sure, but it'd be cool to just like do some like reservation dogs or something like that. It's just like just Native Americans being Native Americans because they're Native Americans, and we don't
Right.
have to justify their being better or worse through
Yeah.
a cliche, a magic plot point. Although I did like one of the things you said about it that I would have like bought a little bit more if her connection was a little bit more on the mystical side instead of like the glowy side. And it's more about
Yeah.
the what she does
Yeah.
to Wilson Fisk, right? It's like being able to heal through the connection to your elders
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Like maybe that one I would have bought more, but the minute she
Yeah.
did
The glowy hands.
the glowy
Yeah.
hand, it's like
Yeah.
don't do that. Especially I don't know because I don't know if you've seen What If season 2.
I haven't actually.
Did you like season 1?
I did like season one.
Then you're gonna love season 2.
Really?
Yes, I like season 2 a lot, especially the second half of season 2 because there's a bunch of
Okay.
banger episodes. and I don't want to spoil them for you, but I kind of have to
Okay.
spoil one a little bit because in one of the remember at the beginning when we started talking about this that you were saying that you didn't know if Echo was like
A comic book
creation
character. Yeah,
a
or she was a
creation for the
TV creation.
MCU
Yeah.
or already
Yeah.
okay.
Uh-huh.
So I was almost about to like really go into a detailed answer for that, but I held myself for this moment.
Okay.
And
Okay.
the reason for that is just that in What If we actually have the first created character in the MCU, the first hero that they've created for the MCU that is not based on a comic book character,
Right.
and that is Kahori. And Kahori is a Native American, a Native
Mm.
American from like colonial times. That well, I mean, I don't want to spoil the episode,
Right.
but she is like the new one of the new superheroes in the MCU that is a Native
Okay.
American woman as well. So I think that's what was kind of like the interesting thing about then watching this show because I'm gonna say, okay, in What If I have to spoil it, like, she does have like powers,
Okay.
and they're
Okay.
bestowed, and they're bestowed. Do you want me to spoil it or not?
Go ahead. It's fine.
One of her powers are bestowed by the Space Stone, one of the Infinity Stones, which
Okay. Uh-huh.
fits right into the
Yeah.
MCU. So I'm like, okay, fine. But now we have this other Native American character, and I'm just like, okay, let's try to not to do the. It's not the same thing, but let's not do the similar
Yeah. We
thing,
don't need to give her powers. Yeah.
right? And
So
now
it's kind of yeah.
and now she has powers, but whatever. Besides the point. Watch What If. Kahori is awesome. She's my new favorite MCU character. And the fun fact is the voice actor for her is the actor that actually plays Maya's cousin in Echo.
Really, Bonnie?
So yeah, so it's a
That's
synergy,
awesome. That's actually
synergy,
really cool.
synergy right there. Uh,
Hmm.
so yeah, so that was kind of like my kind of small pet peeve into Maya getting like the superpower through magic of the
Yeah.
elders. And I was like, oh. One, we kind of saw it a little bit already, and then two, let's not double down on tropes here. But yeah, but overall, I think the show ex I don't know. Would I say excellent? No, I would say good. Overall,
It's good.
show
It's
good,
good. Hmm.
enjoyable. It's a good direction, refreshing, especially amongst a
Yeah.
lot of the dribble that we've seen. And I say dribble with the most amount of love possible. Dribble we've gotten from the dribble or dribble with a V, not a B.
Dribble. I think.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah.
that was my
Dribble.
accent coming out. That we've seen from the MCU. So yeah, it's a good. So looking forward to Maya's continuing adventures, because I'm pretty sure we'll see her in Daredevil now. So
Probably. Yeah. So we just have to wait and see, basically.
hopefully not too long. Hopefully not too long. I
Have
read
they
an
announced when the Daredevil stuff is coming out? Do you know?
no, but I saw this past week. I think it was that they're starting up production again.
Okay.
So that's good news.
Mhm.
Which in other news, Diego Luna said like during the Emmys or whatever that he only has like maybe a week left of filming for Andor. Uh, but unfortunately, we won't see Andor until 2025. We're
Yeah.
still a ways away, unfortunately. But yeah, Echo, good.
Hmm.
We want to see more of it, more types of those stories. But let's make them longer. And
Yeah.
let's not make them look cheap. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with all of that. So I think that's a good place to stop, right? Because I think we're done talking about Echo.
I think we could keep going, but yeah, let's not bore everybody.
Yeah, no, we're fine with that. So yeah, so we're gonna keep talking Star Wars always because that is our main fandom, and as news and everything comes out, we will let you know. We will keep talking about other shows that we're into while we, come into this age of new media again after everything that happened with the strikes, and we're very excited about all the new stuff that's coming out. So we're the Triad. We're going to keep going, keep checking us out. Like,
Yeah.
subscribe, leave a comment. Let us know what you think. And until next time, may the force be with you. Mwah.